First off, big shout out to Luis. Luis, hopefully I'm saying your name right. Thank you for suggesting this topic. I can't always get to subscriber requested topics, but I do try. So thank you so much. I think there's a lot of people out there who are trying to construct a monthly income portfolio from dividends because they're thinking in the long term, they're thinking about retirement, and you, sir, are very much so thinking this way. So I'm just going to show you a couple tips how you can find this information for yourself and a couple examples using my own stocks whereby you can determine when you might get paid. It's not perfect, but I can show you a couple places to look so you can piece this information together for yourself depending upon what investments you want to invest in. I'm not going to recommend you invest in any one particular investment, but I know that Luis, ladies and gentlemen, he really likes Dividend Aristocrats, companies that have been able to routinely increase their dividends consecutively for 25 plus years. And so those are the kind of companies we're going to be talking about today. If you're an investor out there who's wanting to look at the Dividend Aristocrats because you've heard of them, then there is an ETF. Now, I'm not recommending this ETF, but for the sake of this video, since we're going to be talking about some of the Dividend Aristocrats, I do want you to be aware there is a Dividend Aristocrat ETF you can invest in that holds like 40 different Dividend Aristocrats so that you don't have to go out and pick and choose which ones to invest in. And the ticker symbol for that is NOBL, or NOBL. I just want to read up a little bit on that with you guys, and then we're going to look at a few examples of looking at a couple different stocks, a couple Dividend Aristocrat kind of stocks, when they pay, so that you can start to piece together a portfolio that will pay you monthly in the future. ProShares S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrat ETF. This one's pretty cool. I don't know many other funds that do this, but here we go. The S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats, only high quality companies qualify. That's what's important about Dividend Aristocrats in general, is that they're known for being high quality. They've been around for a long time, and for most of them, you can expect the money, the earnings to keep rolling in because they're a well-established company.
However, just like anything else, always do your own research before you buy. You never know when a good company is becoming a bad company, and you won't know until you take a moment, take the time to look it over. Always do your research, even if you're looking at buying a Dividend Aristocrat.
Investors looking to build a durable equity portfolio with quality companies at its core may want to consider a dividend growth strategy, specifically one that invests in companies with the longest track records of dividend growth. ProShares S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats ETF, NOBL, is the only ETF focusing exclusively on the S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats, a rare breed of high-quality, large-cap companies that have raised their dividends for at least 25 years. It's pretty impressive. If you're not aware of what companies qualify, they're probably companies you've heard of, but companies like 3M is a Dividend Aristocrat, Coca-Cola, Colgate, Dover Corp, Emerson Electric, Genuine Parts, Johnson & Johnson, Proctor and Gamble, Stanley and Black & Decker, Hormel Foods Corp. And so there's a huge list. If you go to Google and you type in Dividend Aristocrats complete list or something to that effect, you're going to see what companies would actually fall under that category, so that you don't have to do a treasure hunt to try to find these. You can really quickly find this information if you just search for it on Google.
GTS, Google that shit.
You're going to find all sorts of lists of what companies qualify or meet this criteria if this is something you're interested in doing. I don't personally believe investing only in Dividend Aristocrats. I think there's pros and cons, which we'll discuss towards the end of the video. So let me show you now how you can actually find the payout dates of some of these companies. It's not as simple and straightforward as you may think, but it's also not too challenging to figure out once you know the process and how to apply that process. So I'm going to show you how to do that now, step by step. And then I'm going to show you some example on screen, and then we're going to wrap it up nice and tight and finish off this video. There are many websites out there that you can analyze this information on, but for me, the one I've found the easiest to use, and I'm not a big fan of Yahoo, but is Yahoo Finance. In terms of ease of use, I think it's a great way to start, but there's a lot of other websites out there you can do this with. This is just an example that I'm using for this video. So if we go to Google, all you can do is go to yahoo.com. Go to yahoo.com, ignore the politics of everything, and click on that little finance button right up here. And then this brings us to the homepage of Yahoo Finance. From here, we want to select the company. So we saw that Johnson & Johnson was a company on that list. So all we would do is right here, see where it shows quote lookup. We're gonna type in J&J. And if you don't know the name of the company, you can just type in Johnson & Johnson. It should come up just the same. Click this right here. Click. This is gonna take you to the summary page of Johnson & Johnson stock. From the summary page, what you're gonna do is click on historical data. Historical data right here. So click on that. It brings you then to the daily price history of Johnson & Johnson. And it shows all the price fluctuations of the stock. But we're not interested in the price fluctuations right at this point in time. We're interested in the dividends. So the way we find that is pretty simple. So see where it shows historical prices right here? Change that to dividends only. So now this is dividends only. And then change the time period right here to max. So now we're going to change that to max, and then we're going to hit apply. And now this is going to show the payout history of all the dividends for Johnson & Johnson. Of when now this I found over the years, I didn't realize this at first. These dates, this is not the date the dividend is actually paid. Let me say that again. The date you're seeing here is not the day the dividend actually hits your brokerage account. These are the dates when the company declares they're going to be issuing a dividend in the near future. That's what these dates mean. And so don't get confused thinking that this is when the payment hits your account. That's not the case. So let's look at a couple examples now, and I'll show you what I mean. The first example I want to show you is VIG. And that is, I've owned this ETF for a long time, and that is the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation Index Fund. Holds many different companies that not only appreciate in value, but often increase their dividend payouts. So that's what it does. So here's when it lists its payouts in terms of dividends, or this is when they declare dividends. So I'm gonna show you something that's kind of interesting with this ETF. Notice that in March 2020, or March 26th of 2020, it declares a dividend. Well, with an ETF, they often will relinquish that payment fairly soon afterwards, quicker than stocks per se, when in terms of how quickly they turn that payment around from the time they declare it. So in actuality, they declare it in March. Well, then from my brokerage account, you can see right here. So in March 31st, that's when that payout actually did occur. But what's interesting though is notice if I go back here, the next payout is declared in June 29th, so right near the end of the month. Well, this payment right here, that didn't hit my account till, in actuality, whoops, let me transfer over if it will let me. Sorry guys, webpage froze up. No! Sorry guys, my webpage just froze up and I don't know what it's doing now, but so it declared it in June of 29th for VIG, right? Well, then that payment didn't actually hit my account until July 2nd of 2020. So there's disparity. There's always a time gap between when it's declared versus when it's actually being paid into your brokerage account. That was the first example. Now let's look at another one, a Dividend Aristocrat, Proctor and Gamble, which is probably my favorite Dividend Aristocrat stock that I own. It's probably my absolute favorite. I use their products literally all the time, every day in my household. And I've owned the stock now for several years and it's treated me really well. Besides Yahoo Finance, which we're going to look at in just a second, there are the surefire way to determine when a dividend is going to be paid, because it can be confusing and takes a little bit of guesswork, is if you can find the news article though, when a company, whenever they're going to release a dividend, when they're going to declare a dividend, they also usually list when that dividend is going to be paid. That's the more surefire way you can determine when payment is going to be relinquished and hit your account. So as you can see here, this is just a news article I found from Yahoo Finance under Proctor and Gamble, and it says right here, it says the dividend. So the dividend in this example is being declared on July 24th. It's being recorded, but will be paid August 17th of 2020. So on August 17th of this year, I should expect this dividend to be hitting my account, even though the dividend's being declared July 24th. So let's look at Yahoo Finance and see what they have to say. So Yahoo Finance actually recorded this as of July 23rd. that what the next dividend payment's going to be, which is going to be 79 cents per share for Procter and Gamble. But once again, the payment's actually going to hit our account August 17th. That's another example. Let's look at another Dividend Aristocrat. Let's look at Johnson & Johnson, and then we'll see when this is paid in my account. So Johnson & Johnson, it last declared a dividend May 22nd. When did it actually hit my account? Well, Johnson & Johnson, actually, the payment hit my account June 9th of 2020 is when Johnson & Johnson paid me 50 buckaroos. So the thing to take away from this, guys, and let's just one more example, and we'll start to wrap this up. So like American Water Works declared its dividend last one in May. Actual payment was received early June of $60.50 is what I received for my investment in American Water Works on that investment. So I think the thing to take away from this is that if for ETFs, if it declares a dividend close to the end of the month, it might pay out before the end of the month. But if you're like 1 or 2 days before the end of the month, it's probably not going to pay out until the following month. If you have a stock, stocks usually don't pay as quickly. So if you have a stock, what I mean by that is if it shows that's declared in May, then it's more likely than not that the actual payment will come in the following month. That's what I have found to be true for stocks. If it tells you the payment's going to be, it declares it here on Yahoo in April, the payment usually comes in May. If it declares it in February, the payment usually comes in March. You guys get what I'm saying? So it's usually 1 month ahead of whatever it says here, typically for individual stocks. ETFs, though, they might pay in the same month they declare. It just depends. But always look at the company's website or the investor portion of that company's website of the Dividend Aristocrat and see when they announce they're going to declare see when they declare the dividend and see in the news article when it's going to be paid. I think that's the better way to find this information. But this is probably the faster way to do it here than to try to hunt down all this information for yourself. Now, I've put together a little spreadsheet just as a quick example of some of the companies that I own. Not all of these are Dividend Aristocrats, but like 3M is, Johnson & Johnson is, Procter and Gamble is. But just to show you like when the different dividend payments hit. As you can see, like there's very few companies that usually pay in January. There's very few companies that pay in April. So the thing to be careful with when you implement this strategy is realize most of your income, the bulk of your dividend income, is going to come at the quarter ends. That's generally when most investments pay out, is each quarter. The downside and the danger of trying to get money every month, which you can do it, but be cautious about over allocating your resources into one particular investment to try to normalize your income. I think you can expose yourself to too much risk. So for example, like if I only have one investment paying me in January, like this NHI is a healthcare REIT that I own. If I put 5 times as much money into this investment as I do my other ones to try to make my monthly income in January go higher, well then I leave myself to huge downside exposure if NHI doesn't perform. And so that's the risk you take of doing this. Now, I would much rather you see, as an investor, I would put a risk over normalizing your income. I think risk is more important to manage than trying to normalize your income. I think if you want to normalize your income, to do it, there's a couple different ways. Well, the first way is, yes, you can invest in monthly investments. Like there's bonds that pay monthly. This is a short-term bond that I own that pays me monthly. Do I have it listed here? I don't have it listed here. I thought I did, but there's like a financial instrument that pays monthly. I think it's PFF or PPF. It's something like that, but it's like a bond fund that pays monthly. That's something you can invest in for monthly income. But much more so, what I would do is I would focus more on knowing that your income's probably going to be higher in the quarter ends, is I would try to budget for the months in which dividends aren't going to be as strong, and then when you receive the dividend payments in March, then in March when you receive the higher amount of dividend payments, then you budget accordingly going forward to try to normalize out your income. So if you receive $1,000 a month here, $1,000 a month in February, and then maybe you receive like $4,000 in March, well then divide up that $4,000 and budget it out, split it up between April, May, in these other months where you're not getting as much income. I think that's a better way to do it, because at least that way you don't have to take a substantial amount of risk, because like I said, most companies pay quarterly and they don't always pay in certain months. But the process I showed you is how you would go about determining when they might pay out. Whether by looking at Yahoo Finance, by looking at news articles, you can Google search the Dividend Aristocrats and start piecing together. You got to do some digging, you got to do some homework, but you can eventually get there and determine, okay, well, here's the 50 or 40 companies that have raised their dividends consecutively over the past 25 years. And these are the ones that pay in January, these are the ones that pay in February, March, April, May, and all that good stuff. And then from there, you can start to piece this together for yourself to help normalize your income so that when you're ready to retire, you can budget appropriately. All right, Luis, well, thank you so much for the topic suggestion. Please leave your comments, your questions down below. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. It means a lot to me if you would. Share this video and make sure you're subscribed for future episodes. I love you all, guys. Have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you down in the comments. Live life uncaged.